Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by Tracy Kawa. She is a trainer, a success coach, author, speaker, podcaster, as well as a community advocate. Tracy has spent 25 years in personal and professional branding, as well as business and professional development. So we're going to let her talk about her expertise and see what she's up to. So Tracy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Curtis, thank you for having me on your show. This is really an honor and it's exciting.
Well, I appreciate you reaching out. Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am originally from Brooklyn. If you don't pick that up in the accent when I'm talking, moved down here to South Florida about 20 something years ago. And prior to the work I did now, I spent a lot of time in retail. And due to unforeseen circumstances, I had amassed a really beautiful collection of clothing. And due to unforeseen circumstances, some of those clothes got really, really damaged. So I actually had to go out and purchase a couple of new outfits. And somebody came up to me the first day I was wearing a new outfit and said, "Oh my God, Tracy, you are so good reinventing yourself." And in that moment, it was like a light bulb went off. I realized that really was something I enjoyed, not only reinventing myself, but helping other people find their hidden talents and find opportunities for themselves in the work world and in business and launching businesses. And that's really where it all began for me professionally. Personally, I live in South Florida with my significant others, and we have a bunch of doggies and my two sons.
Well, for the listeners who might not be aware, tell us what personal and professional branding is and what that means to you and how you got started in that.
Yeah, that's a really great question. There is a quote by a designer, and his name is John Williams. His definition of brand is the best I've ever heard. And it's so simple. It's literally your promise to your customer. And what that means is your brand is how you show up. So even if you don't have customers because you don't have a business, think of your customers as your coworkers, your family, the people that know you, the people that sit on board of directors with you. Those can be in this scenario, like what a customer is. It's somebody who expects something from you. And it's really important that we show up each and every day consistently so that the people around us know what to expect. So my promise is that I bring insight, I bring tools, I bring all kinds of useful processes and resources to help people identify their best fit in the marketplace. And I bring these tools to coaches so that they can help their clients find their best fit in the marketplace and really uncover a lot about ourselves, like values and our decision-making process. I think it's really easy for people to say, "Oh, I'm driven by integrity." But the truth of the matter is, we all do like to think that we're driven by integrity, but we actually have about 45, 50 values that drive us in business. And they all stack up like the kids' game Jenga. So naturally, we each have a number one driving value. And it's different for everyone. Our top 7 values are different for each person. And it's important for us to uncover that critical information about ourselves, because when we do, then we're able to make better values-driven decisions.
Well, you are also part of the largest orthodontic solo practice in the world. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, little facts that, I used to keep really hidden. I used to keep it very well hidden. And then I realized, you know what? That's really part of who I am and part of what drove me to where I am today. I was a co-founder of the largest orthodontic practice that is still to this day anywhere in the world owned by one single individual. And I really learned a lot in that experience. It was a family business, and I learned about forming teams, developing teams. I learned about identifying talent. I learned about helping people to really step into this space where they work best without trying to force people into working a way that doesn't feel comfortable for them.
Tell us about Kawa Community Partners and tell us what that company does.
Got it. So from working with the orthodontic practice, naturally, I did have a lot of local people who saw what we had accomplished in what I would say would be a relatively short period of time. So eventually people started coming to me and asking, how did you do that? And can you help me launch my business? So from that grew Kawa Community Partners. And I realized early on that I needed to have a process because different business people would come to me with different needs. One person might already have an established business, but want to do some marketing, and another person might not even have an established business. They're just about getting ready to put their shingle out for the first time ever. So I had to find a way to meet each client and prospective client where they were at. So what I did was in Kawa Community Partners, I helped to redevelop an assessment tool that really helped me understand who this individual was in front of me as far as their unique professional DNA goes. And it helped me to help them understand themselves. So from Kawa Community Partners was birthed the KBAT, which is the Kawa Business Assessment Tool. And where we're at today, well, I actually started off with helping not only people launch their business, but then that grew into helping people who were coming out of corporate America to either find roles or maybe get promotions or even to launch their own businesses. So it kind of grew and expanded. And today I train coaches on the use of the tool because I'm really only one person. And I found that at the end of the day, I was really only able to help 3 people a day before my voice would get hoarse and expire. And that's only 15 people a week if you're working 5 days a week. So I had to find a way to multiply myself or 10x myself, so to speak. So I started training coaches on the use of the tool. And that's where I am today.
So you're also active in the community. To tell us about your community work.
Yeah. Thank you for asking about that because just yesterday I was at Dress for Success giving a presentation on how to create a vision board. So that was interesting. And just a little tidbit about that before I tell you about the rest of my community work. What I love about resetting for the new year, and this is now 2023 that we're stepping into, so anybody can do this, right? It's about not just envisioning what you want to do and what you want to have. It's really about starting with the very, very basics, envisioning who you get to be, not even who you want to be, but who do you get to be? Because we're all allowed to grow and add skills and change. And if there's something that we don't like about ourselves, we get to work on those aspects of ourselves. So who do we get to be? And then what do we do? What storms are we willing to walk through to then have what we want to have? So it's all about be, do, have. So I was delivering that message yesterday to Dress for Success, which was really amazing, working with about 20 women with the vision board sitting around a great big table. I'm also a founder of a youth center that is located in South Florida. And I am also on both the large board and the business and professional board of the Jewish Federation of South Palm Beach County. So I really love creating community, maybe because I really didn't feel so much a part of any type of community growing up that I love creating community wherever I'm at. So thank you for asking about my community work.
Absolutely. Well, you're also an author and you got a couple of books out there. So tell the listeners about those books and where to get them and what they can expect when they check them out.
Yeah. You got me smiling. Sometimes I focus on one area and I tend to forget another area. Oh yeah, by the way, I also wrote 2 books, right? So thank you. The first is The 7 Pillars of Reinvention, Finding Your Passion and Purpose. And that was birthed from a conversation with a friend who we were talking about pillars. And those are really the foundational elements or the building blocks for whatever it is that you're working on. So for me, when I'm working with clients and reinvention, it was all about, define job versus career, define passion, define purpose, because we often say these things without really knowing what it means. And I'll give you another little tidbit. This is for your listeners. And, because you bring so much value to your listeners, Curtis, that I just feel compelled to share this, that anytime I am about to work on a project or I'm about to write something, I kind of funnel the concept down to its basic element, which is usually a word or 2 or a phrase. And then I look up what that word or that combination of words mean. Like Merriam-Webster says this, because I find that really is the start and gives the blueprint for then what I get to add and the spin I get to put on it and how I use that word or those sequence of words in business to help people. So in this case, it was the 7 Pillars of Reinvention. And it was really identifying what some of those pillars are, what they mean to you, and then how they relate to your career. And then when I got finished with the first book, The 7 Pillars of Reinvention, I was thinking about how I would have liked to include more stories, more case studies. So it's interesting because, a book is never really finished. There's always changes that we can make to it. And I've really tried to adopt the phrase, done is better than perfect. Because I feel like if we wait for things to be perfect all the time, then an element of procrastination just kicks in. So what I did was I went back to the table and I started collecting my stories, the clients that I've worked with, the clients who I assessed, the clients who came to me for public speaking coaching or resume writing or their bio, or ones who wanted to step out of their business and ended up not stepping out of their business because of the work that we did together. So I said, these stories are really impactful. And sometimes you can demonstrate more by explaining how my work impacted someone than by just telling them, hey, this impacts you. You got to really know how does this impact? Right. So I started collecting all the stories, putting it all together. And I wrote another book, which is Faith, Hope, and Options, a Mid-Career Transitioner's Bible. And this one was a little different from the first one because not only did it have the case studies, but it also has my middle name, Faith, and my sister's middle name, Hope. So I thought that was a cute spin on the title. But it also has verses from the Bible. It has these inspirational quotes about our careers and what God says about wealth and just all different inspirational quotes from not just one Bible, but a few different versions of the Bible and the Jewish Torah. So that's what Faith, Hope, and Options is. It's really more of a guide. And when I say a mid-career transitioner's Bible, how I define a mid-career transitioner is somebody between 40 and 60, or maybe 50, or maybe 35 to 60. Because a lot of those individuals who fall into those age categories feel that the best is already behind them. And they feel that maybe it's too late for them, or that they don't have enough skills, or that they don't have expertise, or maybe that they just don't know where to begin, and they don't know the options that are left. And the reason I chose the word left is because they don't know how to create their possibilities and options. They think that it's like this window that kept closing and closing and closing until there's this little crack left of what they're able to do in their careers. And what I have found, Curtis, is that there's so much more possibility that we can create for ourselves when we know more about ourselves. So that's what Faith, Hope, and Options, a mid-career transitioner's Bible aims to do, is it aims to give information, give best practices of what I have found along the way, give those inspirational stories, immerse with the Bible, because I'm very, believer in God. And that's basically the second book. Oh, and one more thing, actually. So I also discovered along the way that, we use the word purpose, and even I'm guilty of this, using the word purpose as though it's defined by ourselves, right? Like, this is what my purpose is. I didn't pray about it. I just figured that out for myself. What I have found is that with Faith, Hope, and Options, a mid-career transitioner's Bible, it's more about our calling. And our calling is more about what God has destined for our lives. And it's not so much about what Tracy Kawa thinks Tracy Kawa's purpose is. It's more about praying about it and receiving the word of what God wants us to do with our lives, what meaning we have here on earth. We're all here for a reason, and we can either fulfill that reason or not step up and step into that potential. And what I believe is that meaning is our calling, what God has brought us here to do.
Absolutely. Tell us about your podcast.
So I was a podcast. Well, actually, I am currently a podcast, and I was a podcast host for the American Society for the Positive Care of Children. And that came about because I'm also a public speaker, and I wanted to use my training and my voice for something really, really impactful in society. And so I went Googling for positive childcare resources, and I came across the American Society for the Positive Care of Children. I spent a year as their podcast host and brand ambassador. And I mean, I'll never not be a brand ambassador, right? Because who's not for the positive care of children? And currently I co-host the Franchise Women podcast, where we interview women from all different franchise concepts. Some of them are founders of franchises. Some of them are franchisees. Some of them are people who market in the franchise space, but they come from all different places. We interview mostly women. There are some men that we interview. And what I have found there is that no one really is born and says, I want to be a franchisee or franchisor when I grow up, right? They just, franchisees and franchisors, anybody in the franchise space really just falls into it, or they're led into it, or they're guided into it. And once they're there, they love it. So the Franchise Women podcast is all about finding where your passion and your purpose collide, where profits are made, and where relationships are forged.
Okay. Well, do you have any current or upcoming projects that you're working on that people need to know about?
Oh gosh, I'm always working on projects. Well, right now we are cultivating our third cohort, and these are coaches and consultants who want to be or are already in business for themselves. And we train them on the use of the KBAT tool. So we just completed getting our second cohort off the ground. And we're just always looking for more collaborators. And what I found is that before COVID, a lot of coaches and consultants were very complacent with the tools that were out there already on the market. And most of those were based on one science, the science of personality. What I found is that post-COVID, even the coaches and consultants are looking for newer, more revolutionary tools to help their clients with. So that's where the KBAT comes into play. And yeah, we're getting ready to launch our third cohort. So that's definitely something that I'd love to get the word out about.
Well, so everybody can keep up with everything that you're up to, go ahead and throw out your website or your contact information.
Yeah, absolutely. My website is Kawa, Kawa Community, Community Partners, and the partners is plural. KawaCommunityPartners.com. You could reach me at Tracy, Tracy, at KawaCommunityPartners.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, where I try to stay very active, posting every week and interacting with other professionals. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook or on Instagram.
Close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe something I forgot to touch on that you would like to touch on, or just any final thoughts you have for the listeners.
Well, for me, I think it's really important to have shows like yours, Curtis, because I think that there is a lot of noise and a lot of misinformation out there. And for you to bring to the forefront and to bring to light the professionals that you do, I think that's really encouraging to a lot of people who really need good resources. So thank you for everything that you do with your podcast. And of course, I'm sure your audience must, as do I, love the sound of your voice. You know, it's definitely that like smooth jazz kind of voice. So thank you again for the work that you do. I think it's really important to acknowledge you. And it's been an absolute pleasure being on your show. And thank you for the wonderful questions, because they really made me think. You know, it's always when we're being asked questions or when we're teaching others that we learn more about ourselves. So thank you for this opportunity.
Well, I appreciate you for coming out and gracing the listeners with your expertise. And guys, make sure that you check out Tracy, get her books, check out the podcast and everything that she's up to. Follow, rate, review, share this episode to as many people as possible. If you have any feedback on the show, you can send me an email, cjackson102@cox.net. Please be sure to tell a friend. Tracy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Curtis. It was a pleasure.
For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.